on women's issues on the occasion of the International Women's Day. I know that is tomorrow, but we are very happy Women's Day to all of you. As you are all aware, we are here today for a panel discussion on a very, very interesting subject, which goes something like women in leadership, diverse voices and changing vision. This is, as I said, being organized by UKTA and the Nehru Center, as usual, is hosting this event. The discussion today aims to provide a clear understanding of the challenges that women face when they are advancing to the top, because whether we like it or not, there is still the concept of the glass ceiling, which is applicable to women in all walks of life in most countries. And I feel, I may be wrong, but my feeling is that it is more applicable here than it is in many developing countries, including India. We have chosen to bring together some leading women from a wide variety of backgrounds, and this will give you an opportunity to listen to what success in career personally means to women, the problems of reconciling their private and professional lives, ways in which women managers and executives navigate male-dominated organizations male-dominated cultures, and the political and networking skills that aspiring women have learned to acquire, and which they need to acquire to break through this glass ceiling. Now, this is something that has a lot of personal resonance with me as well, because given the sheer nature of my job, these are kind of pulls and pressures I have had to face over the last couple of decades and more of service, because the demands that are professionally placed on me are very often at variance with what my personal life requires. So to share this kind of these challenges with other women who are in a similar position, maybe not in the foreign service, but I'm sure all of them face these pressures and pulls to different degrees in different ways. And I think for all of us it would be interesting and instructive to listen to their experiences, how they have negotiated these pitfalls, how they have overcome them, and where they have not managed to get around them in any way, and therefore how have they handled such situations. I'm sure you'll all, of course, enjoy the evening. The panel discussion today showcases the achievements of UK's women in the social and political and economic life of the country. And so, without saying anything much more, I would now request the Padma, in fact, Dr. Padma Gilli, to take over and tell you a little more about what the next hour and a half has in store for you. Padma.
Thank you, Sangeeta. Respected and Dr. Rama and my dear friends. I am Dr. Padma Gilli, trustee for the UK Telugu Association. Today we assemble, this is the fourth time we are doing in the same place, and we are really proud to have the events going in a successful way. Here, a few words about the topic. Yatra naristu pujyate ramante tatra devata. The God resides in places where women is worshipped. Manuscript, women had a very significant position in our ancient Indian society. In fact, they were superior to men. There are literally evidences to suggest that women had power which could destroy kingdoms and mighty rulers. Vedavyasa, in which Yeah. Vedavyasa in Mahabharata writes how Kauravas fell because they humiliated Draupadi, the wife of Pandavas. Valmiki's Ramayana depicts the sad state of Ravana's for abducting Sita Devi forcefully. The worship of goddess in an ancient period was inspired public to respect women. In the Vedic society, women participated in religious ceremonies and assemblies. There is no evidence of isolation of women in Vedic period in domestic or social affairs, but they are affectionately dependent on their male relationship throughout their lives. There were women like Matreyi, Gargi, Lopamudra, Kosha and Indrani who were learned souls and have put forth their thought in Upanishads. Women had an opportunity to choose their man through a type of marriage called Swayamvara. In this type of marriage, the eligible grooms assembled at the bride's place and the bride selected her man. There are many such incidences in epics, the Ramayana and Mahabharata. This continued even in the later period in royal families. Women were given more freedom as compared to now. As the time passed, the position of women underwent a drastic change in all spheres of life. In the later Vedic period, women lost their political rights of attending assemblies. Child marriages came into existence. It is a myth that women were not given status in Vedic period. In Vedas, it was mentioned that women are worthy of worship. They are the fate of the household, the lamp of enlightenment for all in the household. They bring solace to the family and are the integral part of the dharmic life. Even heaven is under the control of women. The God resides in those households where women are worshipped. Atharva Veda says the wife should do Agnihotra, Sandhya Vandana and all other daily religious rituals. If for some reason her husband is not present, the woman alone has full rights to do yajna. Rig Veda that says that women and men are having equal in the eyes of dharma. Rig Veda also mentions that during Hindu marriage ceremonies, the following slokas are read out by the groups, but these days little understood. It says, "O bride, I accept your hand to enhance our joint good fortune. I pray to you to accept me as your husband and live with me until our old age." But in the present world, it is a misfortune that we are appear to have we're finding a need to talk about the recognition of women and their advancements. So it has created a long gap from that to this age. There were many advances in social life and cultural life, but the women power has been deteriorated. But later on in this era, we are trying to get back to the old system where women were worshipped. And today there are ladies, women in higher positions, but there are very few in the leadership positions. As Srimati Sangeeta Bhagat mentioned, there are so many places where the women have to face challenges as it has become a male-dominated society. And so today, our speakers, who are excellent speakers, will be enlightening us with the topic. And then after that, we have question answer sessions, and where you can discuss with the panel members. Thank you very much.
Nirmala Rao is a pro-director at the School of Oriental and African Studies. She was formerly at Goldsmith College, University of London, OBE for services at the Queen's Birthday Honours. I request Professor Nirmala Rao garu to address the gathering.
Thank you very much. And thank you all. I really am honored to join you to commemorate the International Women's Day. But before I go any further, I just want to thank Padma and her team for organizing this so efficiently. And really, thank you very much. And Sangeeta, of course, thank you for providing UKTA with all the facilities to celebrate the special day. And it's heartening to see several men here who are joining us on this occasion. And we all feel particularly proud of where we've got, yes, from Rigveda times or even perhaps the last 100 years. I hope, what I hope to do, and Sangeeta did give some very good pointers, and I hope to expand on some of the issues that Sangeeta raised about women aspiring to be in leadership positions. And I hope in so doing, I don't come across as women who are complaining about not advancing in the difficulties. But these are the realities of the position we women find ourselves. And we are not using this as an opportunity, as I said, to complain more about our position, but just as it is. International Women's Day was first celebrated over 100 years ago by working women in the United States. But the idea was quickly picked up and carried forward by women around the world. It's a day when women are recognized for their achievements without any regard to divisions, whether national, ethnic, linguistic, cultural, economic, or political. It's an occasion for looking back on past struggles and accomplishments, but more importantly, for looking ahead to the untapped potential and opportunities that await the current and future generation of women. And this is what we hope to do this evening. What I would like to do is go back, not to Rigvedic times, but I'd like to go back to 1901 and draw your attention to a book which was published by Sarah Miles Franklin. She was a major Australian writer who wrote her first novel, which was entitled My Brilliant Career. In this novel, an ambitious young woman evades marriage to pursue her career. But the publication of the book caused so much distress and embarrassment to the family and the community that it was soon withdrawn by the publisher in deference to the wishes of the family. It was a sadder but wiser Sarah wrote a sequel, My Career Goes Wrong, which in turn was not published for another 40 years until reality. More than 100 years later, we are today still faced with that sort of choice. Women continue to find it difficult to reconcile their private lives and public works, as Sangeeta pointed out, as they seek to pursue their ambitions to advance. But the conflicts today are more subtle and not as stark as they then were. Today's focus on women's leadership seems to be a logical progression from the commitment to women's empowerment made by many development organizations throughout the world in the late 1980s and particularly in the early 1990s. We have moved on, much has changed. The increasing prominence of leaders like Carly Fiorina, Hillary Clinton, Condoleezza Rice, Sherry Blair, and more recently, Indira Krishnamurti Noy, current CEO of PepsiCo, Mary Barra, due to become the first CEO of General Motors, just to name a few, underscores the important changes in gender roles in recent years. In many countries, the number of women elected to local councils or national parliaments has increased. There are more women MPs in the UK than there were a decade ago. Over 30% of elected members of parliament are female in countries such as Finland, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Iceland, Germany, Netherlands, Scotland, and South Africa. In Sweden, there are more female than male government ministers. The idea that it's necessary and desirable to have a significant number of women leaders in politics and public life has blossomed in recent years. It is, of course, true that in 1999, when Carly Fiorina assumed leadership of Hewlett Packard, she announced, I hope that we are at the point that everyone has figured out that there is not a glass ceiling. But 7 years later, I don't know if you remember, but in her memoir, setting out her highly debated public expulsion from HB, Fiona recounted endless examples of the sexism she had earlier denied. They have just about captured, I think, contemporary ambivalence about women in leadership. A recent study showed more than 90% of surveyed Americans are willing to vote for a qualified female presidential candidate, which is up from a third in the 1950s. Yet only half think the country is ready to elect one. Likewise, for more than 2 decades, women have been earning about a third of the MBAs awarded, for example, in the US. Yet they constitute only 2% of Fortune 500 CEOs and 8% of top leadership positions. For almost a quarter century, women have made up more than 40% of new entrants to the legal profession. But there's still less than 1/5 of law firm partners and Fortune 500 general counsels. The gap widens for women of color, who account only for 1 to 2% of corporate officers, law firm partners, and general counsels. Although gender quotas for public positions have brought women an increasing share of political leadership, they still lag far behind in corporate and elite professional settings. In Europe, women account for about a third of managerial positions, but only 3% of CEOs. Stereotyped assumptions are often behind decisions not to restructure the political arena to suit women's needs or entrust women with leadership roles, or even to include women. What are termed old boys networks in the English-speaking world are powerful influences on the selection of candidates for local and national politics. These networks exist between men with shared interests and backgrounds, and women are not always prepared to be part of these networks. I can say something about the higher education sector in the UK, which is where my professional experience is rooted. Today, women constitute only 21% of professors in the UK, and of course the minority, professors are around only about 3 to 4%. And only 17% of vice chancellors. 17% of vice chancellors out of 160 universities of all types comprises something like 16 vice chancellors. And of the 16 women vice chancellors, only 2 are in research-intensive universities in Bath and Manchester. The others are all in post-92. Lamenting the low numbers of women vice chancellors in British universities, speakers at the Missing Women in Higher Education Leadership conference at Lancaster University held recently concluded that a large part of the problem was the entrenched notion that men were more natural leaders than women, something exacerbated by the increasing use of generally male-led headhunting firms who report to male-led academic boards. I also understand that interview panels often offer the view that female candidates are not quite ready, but the same comments are not made about them. And I have to say I can confirm this because I'm often on appointment panels quite regularly. And it is a remark that I myself have come across the male member of the panels quite often making that observation about them. Women's underrepresentation in leadership positions is at least partly attributed to traditional gender expectations and practices. Despite the success of many admirable women, it is still the case that for many in this society, in this culture, women are seen as sentimental, submissive, and docile, where men are seen as independent, adventurous, and strong. And as a result of these expectations, many women experience low self-esteem, see any progression to themselves as involving conflicts with men. A fundamental challenge, of course, to women's leadership arises from the mismatch between the qualities traditionally associated with leaders and those traditionally associated with women. The assertive, authoritative, and dominant behavior that people link with leadership tend not to be viewed as typical or attractive in women. When women achieve in distinctly male arenas, they are seen as competent, but are less well-liked than equally successful men. By the same token, when women performing traditionally male roles are seen as nice, they are liked but not respected. In short, women, unlike men, face trade-offs between competence and likability in traditionally male roles. In leadership contexts, these biases play out on several levels, in the ways that organizations structure leadership paths and positions, in the ways that people perceive women leaders, and in ways that women leaders perceive themselves and what they must do to succeed. At each level, a woman's qualifications for leadership are called into question. Organizations consistently, if unwittingly, communicate that women are more well suited for leadership roles. Just as others may view her leadership through a cultural lens distorted by gender bias, so too a woman may have difficulty developing a viable view of herself as a leader. Recent studies, I'm not going to be too academic here, but just pull out a couple of findings, suggest that individuals who are unable to firmly ground their self-identity in the leadership role may be missing a critical requirement for leadership development. In that respect, gender bias presents a significant problem, not only for women, but also for organizations. Women leaders clearly navigate a different social and organizational terrain from their male counterparts, a terrain deeply rooted in cultural ambivalence. Let me just pause for a moment to return to my own trajectory and see in what ways, if I have managed to overcome some of the stereotypes and cultural norms. Determination, commitment, and resilience, I'd say, were crucial. Encouragement and wise mentoring also enabled me to overcome many of the hurdles along the way. The lack of professional role models, of mentors, and of informal networks has clearly been identified as one of the most serious obstacles to women's advancement. I was fortunate to have had important people to guide me, and I hope many young women who are here today will have them too. Nevertheless, as a result of trials and tribulations in my own life, in my own circumstances, I became much more aware of the hurdles women face in progressing and the qualities they need to overcome them. There's a great deal of rich literature in gender studies that point out the importance of such factors as competence, confidence, and self-belief. The problem is that many of us here, many of the women here, we have these qualities, but there are other practical things that we need. For example, accumulating a strong track record. This is partly a matter of qualification and partly a matter of getting the right experience, of getting the right breaks, a foothold in a career. And there are some subtle qualifications too, of fitting the expectations of how a future manager or leader should behave and conduct herself. It's also important sometimes to have the courage to challenge accepted orthodoxies. Getting more women elected or appointed to leadership and decision-making positions is not enough if the systems and political culture are still primarily designed for men. It's not enough to train women as leaders without also working on changing negative attitudes towards women leaders on the part of political parties, the governments, the media, and the public. The working culture and systems of political parties, governments, corporations, whether public or private, need to reflect their change in attitudes. That said, I'll go back to my original point. Success for a leadership position in any field requires us to demonstrate very strong commitment, which often translates into long hours, working, traveling, perhaps overseas, as well as working at home, on the weekends, all of which lead to considerable stress for ourselves and our families. I can recognize that, and I'm sure that some of you can too. This is by no means an exhaustive list, and many of you here will have other things to add. The point is that there's only a limited amount of time in the working day and the working week. I think it's fashionable to speak of the need to achieve a positive work-life balance as something which is seen as creditable when declared by a man, but which evokes horror if silent laughter on the part of a woman. I began by alluding to a book by Sarah Franklin, and I'll finish by referring to another. In a classic study of the movement of women into positions of power in village politics in India, the story is told of a village woman who asked her husband if she could attend training for election to the council. His baffled reply was, "And who will make the chapatis?" I leave you with this question, adopted as the title for that book, as a way of thinking one of the more poignant aspects of how women seeking to advance to leadership positions of any sort manage their private lives in public works. Thank you.
Thank you, Nirmala. Our next speaker, Dr. Ramabala Vayuru, King College Hospital, NHS Trust, Honorary Lecturer, School of Biomedical Sciences and Medicine, King's College, London, author of Handbook of Medical Emergencies, contributed articles on cardiac disease in reputable magazines like Telugu Vidyarthi, several radio talks on heart disease prevention and treatment, live phone-in advice on radio and television, medical advice on telugu1.com. Proud to announce that she is the first woman cardiologist in Andhra Pradesh for adults, first Telugu consultant cardiologist in UK. I now request Dr. Rama Bala Vayuru to say a few words. Thank you.
Good evening, thank you very much. Let me first thank UKTA trustees Padma Kili and Madam Sangeeta Bandu for giving me this opportunity to share some of my thoughts with you. I'm not a big orator, so I'm taking the help of a PowerPoint presentation to guide me through. I like this definition of leadership. Leadership is the art of motivating a group of people to achieve a common goal. When we think about leaders, we think about political leaders, we think about movement leaders, we think about charismatic people. But leaders are there in every field, be it education, be it village politics, be it thought leadership, which changes our attitude. So who are not charismatic, who cannot come in front of you and speak to you, but they are leaders because they are changing, they are motivating, they are leading you towards a goal. Well, Professor Nirmala Rao alluded to this. The qualities of leadership have always been seen as a male characteristic. What are the qualities of leadership? There are intelligence, self-efficacy, adjustment, extroversion, conscientiousness, open to experience. They are present in every woman. Every woman is capable of each and every quality. But the qualities need to be applied and highlighted in the right time, the right place, and the right cultural climate. Desakala paristhitulu antaru Telugu. We have to change our attitudes and apply our characteristics according to that. Leadership was always originally seen as leaders are born, they're not trained. We've laughed at that idea now. That is because leaders were kings, royalty. So the type of leadership is autocratic. I will say this, you have to follow me. That is kind of leadership there was. Then with the evolution of democracy, that changes to more participative, more charismatic, like freedom fighting, the freedom struggle in India, they were the charismatic leaders. They inspire people to follow them, to give up their livelihood, give up everything and sacrifice. Those were the charismatic people. And like Abraham Lincoln was a charismatic leader. But now it is more of in a democracy, it's more of participating leaders. To take your views about, act on them, develop you. Whereas in corporate sector, it might be a different kind of leadership. Mostly participative, but it could be laissez-faire. Just free rein, like Google. They let you do what you want. They encourage creativity, free thinking. That is kind of leadership that sector needs. In a production one, it has to be task-oriented. You have to produce so many things by this time. That is how you have to act. So one type of leadership doesn't suit all. But what is universally acknowledged is what is not desirable, the narcissistic, the egotistic, the self-promoting leadership, or toxic leadership where they, actually destroy people. They try to humiliate people. That is the kind of leadership we do not want. We do not want to encourage. So why focus on leadership for women at all? Okay, women form half of the humanity. And you are not using half of the human resources in the world if you're not developing leaders from women. But we need considerable changes in organization and also changing skills, changing workforces. When I finished school, I wanted to be an engineer. My father, who is quite forward-looking person, laughed at me saying, women are not suited to be engineers. Those days, the only engineers are mechanical, civil, electrical. So he thought, the physical struggle is unnecessary for a woman. I said to him, oh, there are some things called electronics and computers that are evolving, and there are courses in Pilani at that time. And he said, you're a dreamer. And he laughed at me, and I couldn't do engineering. But now, most of the engineers, especially software engineers, are women, because it suits their lifestyle. So the times have changed, the setting has changed, so the career pathways have changed. So particularly the research in healthcare and NHS shows that women leaders receive less complaints. They listen more to the patients or to the relatives. They are more sympathetic. So these leaders have better for the organization, in developing the organization. And also, recent, I'm sure Professor Nirmala Rao would know that, there should be a critical mass of at least 3 women in any trust board to balance, to achieve the change of work culture that is necessary in this 21st century. The old-fashioned way of managing people, managing organizations is not applicable today. So we need more women in leadership, in management. So really, are men and women different? If you take assertiveness, in a man it's called assertiveness. No, actually, if we ask men, what are your leadership qualities that you have? Men say, I'm assertive, competitive, independent, courageous, masterful, decisive, goal-oriented. If you ask women, they would say, I'm helpful, I'm understanding, I'm open, I'm fair, I'm responsible, I manage conflicts well, I'm assuring. So that is the way they perceive themselves. Next slide, please. Actually, if you look at that, the same quality in a man, which is called assertiveness, is called arrogance in a woman. If they are competitive, a woman is pushy, man is competitive. A woman is rebellious if she is independent. She is reckless if she is courageous. And she is called bossy if she is masterful. Same. If she is decisive, she is rash, she is not thinking. She is goal-oriented, she doesn't care about anything else. So it is the perception rather than the qualities that matter. So the perception needs to be changed. The qualities are already there. Next one, please. Again, behavioral differences. So it is not enough for the organization to change or the law to change. We have to change. Our behavior has to change. Our outlook has to change. Men, when they talk, they expect to be heard. Whereas a woman, she hopes to be heard. A man automatically expects to be in charge when he goes someplace, but women ask to be rated to take charge. Whereas men deputize, as I can't do it, they won't say I can't do it. Okay, well, I'll ask him to do it. Whereas women, she hesitates to say no and take on too much. And that is probably what leads to a failure, because if you take on too much. There may be a family crisis. Who is the person to stay home? Always the woman. She will have somebody else will deal with it, usually the wife. Whereas family crisis, women automatically take the responsibility. Sponsors are essential in any career progression. Mentoring is important. Women get more mentoring even today, but they rarely ever get sponsors. You మా వాడండి వీడికి మంచి జాబ్ ఇప్పించాలి అని nobody says that about a woman. They say, okay, you do this, I will help you, but they won't promote you as a into a senior position. Next one. So, women have to be more assertive, not necessarily assertive, develop the qualities and change some attitudes. The path of leadership is managing yourself and managing others, and work smart, and Professor Nirmala already said work-life balance, personal development. So it is not enough to achieve a degree and expect to progress from there on. You have to keep on develop personally and professionally. I won't give you a course on leadership, but I'll just go through what they say in the course. So, first of all, important thing, Professor Sangeeta, Mrs. Sangeeta Bahadur said that, Nirmala Rao said that, believe in yourself. Adopt a can-do approach. I can do this. But assess yourself realistically. Understand your strengths and weaknesses. Don't start thinking, okay, I can swim the English Channel without getting preparation and learning swimming first. You have to realize your limitations. And don't just imitate others. Develop your own style of leadership. Each person is different. Each person dealing with people is different. And again, women work hard, they don't work smart. So when you work hard, you burn yourself because you try to be perfect. You try to please others. That is not what is missing. Do the work well. So be goal-oriented rather than trying to please people. Be courageous, but choose your own battles. Don't fight about little things like, oh, you have given me smaller table or smaller office, or don't get enough light. Choose the battles, and they say you may lose a battle to win the war. So it is a long-term goal you have to keep in mind. So don't try to be a superwoman. You can work hard, but don't try to do everything. Deputize. Don't undervalue yourself. That is the most important. Especially Indian women, they have always been told since they were children that you are a woman. You have to be subservient. You don't know anything. You can't do this. You can't do that. So don't undervalue yourself. Rise above it. And even nobody says that you have done a good job. When you know you have done a good job, pat yourself on the back. Next. So this is a prayer I remember very well. Give me the courage to change the things I can. Give me the serenity to accept the things I can't. Give me the wisdom to know the difference. So there are many things that are not under our control. If you are mystified, if you don't make progress, there are outside influences that you can't change. People in last century paved the way for us to be here, be in the positions that we are now. So the success for the womanhood as a whole doesn't come overnight. So there may be so many people who fail along the way to have one person succeed. If you read Bill Branson's book, The History of Everything, he mentions so many scientists who have contributed from everything from atomic science to astronomy, whose names nobody ever heard of. For every Marie Curie, there are hundreds of women scientists who were never recognized. Next one. So managing others is be a good role model. So you have to be good at what you do. You have to be punctual before telling others to come on time. But build a great team. Many times we don't choose our team. We are given a team, especially in bureaucracies. But identify people who are good, nurture them, and be more friendly with them. And most important, integrity. Be honest. If you promise something, deliver it. If you can't do something, don't hesitate to say no. Don't try to please and say, okay, I'll do it. Just be upfront and say, no, sorry, this is something I cannot deliver. Teamwork and your own judgment. Rely on yourself. And most important thing is communication. So that is the key of a good management or leadership role. Work smart, okay. it might be, especially when you are in a higher position in the career, it may be useful to get a good secretary, even if you have to spend more money. It takes the stress off you. It helps you really, keeps you sane, keeps you healthy, keeps you improve your communication skills. You know, if you don't know computers, go do a course and try to improve it. Use technology, so it makes life easier, and dress the part. You know, current I'm one band is better. So if you are going into a leadership role, be there, see what they expect them, you to be dressed as, be smart, be clean, and you know, like simple interview skills we are all told, you know, don't smell of garlic, simple things like that. They make a difference. They give them a different perception when you approach them. Work-life balance it's not easy. It is always, you know, you say, okay, you talk about it, that's fine. It is just relaxing a little bit, away from work, away from the family commitments. It doesn't have to be going out and doing skiing or swimming or something. Read a book that you like. Listen to the music. You know, you can do that while cooking or doing something else. You know, it doesn't have to be, it really relaxes you. Choose something that you enjoy. It doesn't have to be something different. It doesn't have to be a holiday like the Westerners think. You know, you just spend an hour with your close friend. You know, that's all you need. And balance the priorities. You can't do everything. Try to get, just as you develop a network at work, get a network at home. People who can rely on. There is a crisis, somebody will come to you and help. These people, these networks make all the difference in life, and they help you progress in your career. It is time well spent, well invested, if you want to say that way. Again, it changes, and where you are. And if you have a young child, your priority will be family. Your grown-up child, don't hang on to them, don't over-nurture them. Yeah, let them go and look after yourself. You are never too old to develop a leadership role. This is what I show sometimes in an exercise test when we are checking for heart disease. Men are put on treadmill, and traditionally people say, oh, treadmill is not a good test for women. I say, yes, that's because they multitask. They are doing so many things. You have to make it more realistic to bring out their stress. In fact, we can put up with more stress than men. Next one. And as I mentioned earlier, mentorship, or very few people get sponsorship, but mentorship is available in every area. Find a role model, see how they do, how they have progressed, follow their careers, and go and ask for advice. Learn from other fields, not just yours. Any field, the qualities of leaderships are the same. And most importantly, grab opportunities. Sometimes opportunity to become progress in your career may knock, that it may be actually financially a loss. But it will further your career. You have to make a decision. You have to grab that opportunity, even if you have to be off work for a few months. Most importantly, you need a very good support at home. When I'm talking about work-life balance, most of Indian women are married and have families, so family does come first. It has to. But how women develop a lot on their spouses. When I started to go into cardiology, the only women cardiology in India were two people who were both spinsters. They never got married. Later, the few that came on in my generation, they were like most of them in government service. None of them went into private practice like myself. So there is a safety network in government service. You have a 9 to 2 or 9 to 5 job, so we can have a work-life balance there. so you can spend time with your family. But if you want to go into private practice in something like cardiology or surgery, where you have to be available at all times of the day or night, and you may have to go at a moment's notice, that is a challenge, and you need a very supportive spouse. And most women in any field who became successful have very supportive spouses and families. And spouses have to be very confident themselves. They should have high self-esteem to have a woman come into a prominent position. So it is the attitude of the men that we need to change as well. A really self-confident, self-respectful man is not threatened by success. Yeah. I see many successful women who are married to in a different field. Husband is in a different field. They tend to accept that more quickly than if both people are in the same field. That in itself shows that there is an element of competition here. That is inevitable in any human relationship. But as adults, we have to grow beyond that, especially when you realize in the 21st century that women are your partners and not your servants. That many people still tend to think in India. So when Mrs. Sangeeta Bahadur said that India was probably ahead than in this country, I was a bit surprised. I'll finish by quoting a few sources of inspiration I have come across. This is the first one is a report from Career Development International about how women become various stages of leadership in women. They start off with idealism. They need endurance, but they need to reinvent themselves. They have to change their attitudes. And the second one is Wit and Wisdom Press, so Beyond the Boys Club. And the third one is Breaking Through the Glass Ceiling from Harvard Business. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Rama Balagaru. Now it would be a question and answer round. If there are any questions from the audience, you may raise them now.
Really, the situation from Professor Nirmal Rao and very wise words from Dr. Rama. Just one thing that I'm sort of pondering over is both of you. Is that not on me? Sorry. Sorry. I enjoyed both presentations. Thank you very much indeed. Just, I'm sitting here wondering, is there an element of how to actually overcome the barriers and fit in to the existing situation? Perhaps is there a need for us to explore whether the current arrangement, whether it is the work environment or the leadership situation, is that actually correct? Isn't there a need for us to review our social organization, the structure? My worry is it's actually the men who have to learn some of the positives that you identified in women, so that we have actually a balanced society and better leadership. The concern I will have is if women were to find ways of succeeding in a man's world, so to speak, we may not still be making progress.
I'll start with the last comment made. A man's world. It has to become a human world, not a man's world. Law itself can't change our attitudes. We had laws in India for many decades against dowry system. It still exists today. The only thing that changed is when women became more independent, more self-sufficient, and they said, I don't marry a man who asks for dowry. That is when it changed. The law could not change it. The law could not be implemented. You can take somebody to court, you can put somebody in prison, that doesn't change their attitudes. But when women change their attitudes, that changes the system. So then men sit up and take notice and they stop doing it. So it's, think of a human world, an equal society. Again, rules and regulations won't make it an equal society. When, and let Nirmala speak, then I tell an anecdote afterwards.
Please, sorry, I've just.
When I was applying for a trainee post in cardiology early in my career, I had the qualifications, I had excellent references, but I was not getting the job. So one day when I attended the interview, luckily the interview table was very narrow. I could see my CV in front of them upside down, and one of them very kindly marked a tick against my qualifications, my references, my experience, and put a red dot against woman, married, Indian. So I can't change Indian, I'm not prepared to change married, I can't change woman. So at the end of the interview, I knew again that from their body language they're probably not going to give me this job. They asked me, do you have any questions? Usually about pay or leave or things like that. And I said, no, I just want to make a comment, which one question you didn't ask me. You may think that as a married woman, I didn't mention it yet, as a married woman, I may not be able to do justice to this busy job, but you have seen my references. That's because I worked hard, so you should not have any reservations on that count. So I got that job. So that is when you recognize what are the barriers, then you can raise a problem.
There's not much I can add, but I think you ask a very good question in terms of if women are struggling to succeed in a male-dominated arena, then we are really not there yet, and the battle is still, we have a long way to go. How do we overcome the barriers? Just listening to what Dr. Bala is rehearsing with us, I would put them at two levels. You're absolutely right in terms of cultural change, mindset, all these are very important. I would group them in institutional terms and individual terms. In institutional terms, I mean, we do have to make an effort. It's very hard, from my own personal experience. Boardrooms are male-dominated. I sit on audit committees, finance committees. These are all the committees which are male-dominated, and it's very difficult as a one-woman member of these committees to actually. I don't find it very difficult, but it can be very difficult to influence change. So what we have done in higher education is, one of the typical problems we have is when women apply for promotions or people apply for promotions, you always find more men than women actually putting themselves forward for promotions. And I've seen this year on year, and I have made it a point to make our human resources department go proactively and talk to women who are actually ready to speak to them, to make a self-assessment of their own position and invite them to actually apply. Because it's true that women do not feel very confident about, we always think, oh, maybe not this year, maybe next year. Whereas a man will put in the application, whether he's ready or not. He'll definitely put in. It's a confidence that a person comes with, and women don't have it. Women have to be mentored, and they have to be nurtured. And it's very, very important, and that really has made a difference in higher education, where we have actually made sure that during the time of promotions, women are talked to and mentored and coached. And that's made a lot of difference in terms of women putting themselves forward. And the next hurdle, of course, is how do you promote a woman who has taken time out for childcare? You've lost so much time. And in higher education, remember, we have to be publishing all the time. It's one of the indicators. If you don't publish, it's publish or perish. And nobody takes into account the 7 years or 8 years or 9 years that a woman has lost in bringing up children. although institutional policies are now reflecting that and accommodating that factor. That's just one example, but in the institutional side there are so many facilities, so many structures which we are changing to encourage more women to advance, creating more opportunities. But on the personal, individual level, the barriers can be several, not least, as you mentioned, our own motivations, our own resources, the opportunities, and how we seize them. And I think it's very much up to women it's really up to us as to how we are going to navigate those problems. I'm so glad my husband's not here today. But I have to say he's been very supportive. Supportive in the sense never stopped me from applying for a job which I wanted, or in terms of locating somewhere else or relocating. It's been difficult with young children, but he is a traditional male. He is somebody who will expect food to be ready when he comes back home, and those things have not changed. But I do believe the younger generation. I see my son who are married, and I see how different they are. So I'm very hopeful that things will change. I should end on that.
Thank you very much, Anita. I spent the last 12 years worrying about these issues, particularly in the context of my own discipline, science, engineering, and technology.
Sure.
My concern still is this.
We don't have that. And again, what is tradition? Dr. Padma has spoken about tradition. What was in Rigvedic time? If we take Vedas as our standard, women have always been free. They have always led. They have written rigs in Rigveda. They have taken part in local public administration. They have done, that have been eroded over the years with, I won't mention any particular probably history and politics. You probably can give a better overview. With successive invasions, our culture of equality with women has eroded. The respect given to the woman is eroded by successive invasions, and society changed initially to protect women, then it became suppressive to women. I'm again not saying any religious group or any particular group which invaded. And in fact, British have brought back some of the independence for women that has been lost, some of the freedom that has been lost by people like Veeresh Lingam, like Aman Roy, Raja Ram Mohan Roy, all these people, they have changed it. I wanted to quote one of Chalam's thing. Edi Vimukti, Mokate Sadhana, Sahasam. Tirubatu, Sasanam Mida, Karma Mida, Mudatma Mida, Tirubatu. Atmalo Viswasam, Bhavishyattulo Nirbhayam, Pariyosana Nirlaksham.
Sorry, final question.
Sorry.
Good evening, everyone. I'm really thankful to the organizers and also to the speakers. I think you are actually what to say in Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs theory. You are at the self-actualization needs. So where you can see freedom is not something that is to be given by what to say by a superior or by a husband or by a manager, but something that is to be possessed. It's a natural state. We say like Rousseau, I think, is the one who says man and woman are born free, but they're in chains everywhere, whether it's from a marriage or from a society or from a politics. It is not to say that it's like an unrestricted freedom. And I also, with response to you, I think I just want to mention Nordic countries where women participation is so much more in where in public life or in what to say, when it comes to exercising their choices. It's about having the opportunity in the first place and also having an opportunity to exercise on behalf of women also. I think societies evolve over a period of time, so the gender roles change. It is a conditioned response. So if we look at 18th century England. So that time also women were like, they were not supposed to wear frocks, they were not supposed to go outside, they were not supposed to do any jobs. So if you look at Indian context, if you look at Nordic context, if you look at Pakistani context, if you look at Nepal, so societies, they evolve over a period of time. I think India or South Asian attitudes are also changing, especially women, as I hear some word, which is a contested word actually, in terms of freedom. I think the mindset will change. It takes time. Thanks so much.
Thanks for the opportunity. We are very glad to hear about the leadership in women. Padma Garu, you addressed Vedas and everything, and she deliberated very nicely about the leadership qualities, comparison of men and women and everything. And Nirmala has explained very well. Basically, when we take this in our dharma, the representatives of three people, the Trimurti. The Trimurti Dharma, when they are doing, they are representing along with their wives. Without their wives, there's nothing. They're pure all the time. And the Shakti, this energy in everyone. Without energy, there's nothing is going to exist in the universe. That energy is representing by a Shakti, that is as we pray and we do that one. That's the reason we are giving very importance to the Shakti. That's the reason when we see this Lord Shiva and Parvati as well, Ardhanarishwara Tattvam, there's a men and women should be balanced. I feel that if instead of the male domination or women equality and everything, if the people, if they look forward towards the humanity, the human beings, then naturally it comes to be balanced. If in any person, if in a woman as well, so there's equal forces to be there, male and woman. If the person, if we are working in a workplace as well, it's a male force. When it comes to everyone, for in a man as well, there's a female qualities will be there. There's always it should be balanced. That's the thing we receive the message and everything from the our mythology and everything. We need to look forward as a human beings. Then only these kind of misbalances, imbalances will overcome in future. I feel that's Thank you for this opportunity.
I was saying earlier that education and medicine are accepted now as appropriate fields for women.